There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Okay, the motion carries. Okay. We'll move on to the individual item, item 4. Item 4, this is really a follow-on discussion. As many of you recall, many of you look very familiar. You were with us at the special session a couple of weeks ago, and the team has been working in earnest as a result of the feedback that we heard. We heard in the time between then and now, and so there are several things that are underway that have already been completed and that are still under review. In parallel, there was a memo that was put forward by some of my colleagues that also captures some of those efforts, and that'll be the resolution that we will discuss today. Madam Clerk, please read the caption.
Item number 4 is a resolution supporting evaluation of strategies to protect all San Antonians.
Okay. Over to you, Liz. Thank you.
Mayor, just let me reiterate what you already said. So the staff was on track to provide council the follow-up conversation from the session we had in here several weeks ago. The council districts 2, 4, 5, and 6 submitted the memo that you referenced, Mayor, and so timely. We've combined that follow-up and the items that were listed in the memo in the presentation that Liz will walk you through. There are a couple of items from the resolution memo. I'm sorry, the fourth signature memo, where Liz will indicate we're looking for a little bit more direction and conversation from the council. You'll see in the presentation, just to dig down a little bit deeper into what the mayor said, into 4 distinct categories, because I think it was helpful for us as we discussed it internally, as we discussed it with the mayor, to lay them out into actions that we have done, actions that we propose to do, actions that we do not recommend given the legal risk, and then actions that we need to evaluate. And we'll talk a little bit about how we do that. Some of the timing of some of those could be on different tracks, but looking for some council feedback on how we do that. So over to you, Liz. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Elizabeth Provencio, First Assistant City Attorney in the City Attorney's Office, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to be able to be here with you today and to provide the follow-up and the recommendations that we have in conjunction with the resolution that is your council agenda item today. So moving on to the highlight overview that Eric referred to is we've taken the items for feedback from your January 22nd discussion and the specific requests that came to staff to be able to evaluate and report back on in conjunction with the memo that was filed last week that led to this item getting on the agenda, and that is the subject of the resolution that's before you today. And so as you will see in the categories that we have organized the information in is depending on what that action was and the complexity of it in terms of risk analysis in conjunction with the actual practicality will sort of determine the timeline upon which we can act for follow-up for you. So as Eric mentioned, we'll go through the categories that we heard in the follow-up request from January 22nd in conjunction with the memo resolution items on actions that we have done, those that we propose to do, those that we don't recommend in light of the legal risk, and actions that will require further evaluation. So as we get into the actions that have already been done or that are underway, we'll talk a little bit about the city's current work. And so part of what we heard in discussions in conjunction with the memo on today's resolution item was how can there be referrals and how can there be resources for those that are looking, especially for legal guidance or legal resources. And so one of the pieces that we wanted to point out for purposes of that is if you go to the city's website, you will see Office of Immigrant Affairs, which the city has had for some time, and there is a community resources tile. And when you click on that tile, there will unfold a list of resources that relate to legal, that relate to consulate, that relate to educational, that relate to health services, for those that are looking for ways to be able to find third-party support in those areas. So that currently exists on the city's website as a resource. Moving on to the suggestion, recommendation, request for training for city staff specific to when we have ICE potentially at a city facility and ensuring that our employees know what to do in those circumstances and the training for that. And so we had early on guidance that was given to staff at the beginning of 2025, and we have re-upped that guidance, and we have also begun conducting in-person trainings so that they can answer questions and hear directly from legal and HR on what to do in hypothetical situations. And that training is folding out in a series of meetings with employees and supervisors of public-facing facilities. And so that will remain an ongoing project for us. With regard to discussion about Know Your Rights, and here, because we actually have Know Your Rights resources by third parties that are city funded. That, of course, is listed in what we have done and what will continue to be an ongoing effort. Going on to item 4, which was about the resolution item that was requested, is the economic report on the contributions and impact of migrants in San Antonio and Bexar County. We wanted to highlight that we do have a report that was published in December of 2025. It's on the city's website, and it's called the Demographic and Economic Contributions of Immigrants Report that we had funded through a grant with the American Immigrant Council. So you will see that report with information that captures what was included and what the city had uploaded in that December 2025 report. Moving on to what we have heard the requests, recommendations, follow-up from us on in terms of what we propose to do. There's been a request for us to gather and, to the extent make available, ICE activity information. Part of the discussion that we've had with you over time has been the information available is regional information, and it's what ICE provides. So we certainly can link that information so it's easier for people to find. But for purposes of being able to expand it beyond that, we don't have the ability to be able to augment the information in terms of the activity. It's truly just reporting what is reported out by ICE. Moving on to item 6, and this was voiced in a couple different ways, which was how might there be community reporting or intake or logging of alleged rights violations, civil rights violations, as a result of ICE activity. And so we know that there are third parties that have begun some of this work in 2025. We also have the ability to be able to create an intake form of sorts if the city wanted to be a repository of information, of just taking those reports. The difficulty is it would purely be intake and then making that information that is just uploaded to us or reported with us then publicly available. There's not a mechanism for us to be able to act on that. So we just want to be sure that everybody's expectations are in line if that is in fact something you want us to proceed with doing, which is to create this intake process and compile what information is given to the city or reported to the city. Moving on to item 7, this is specific to requests that are made by the feds, specifically ICE, of SAPD and the costs that are associated with that. We have had some discussion with you about the limitations that may be imposed upon that based on some grant conditions that are still in flux for us. And so the limitations on that could sort of evolve over time. And so we can talk about that more if in fact that's something you want us to continue to pursue. Moving on to the category of what we do not recommend in light of the legal risk, separate and apart from the legal pathways that we discussed earlier, and I'll discuss kind of 8 and 9 in conjunction because they're related, but with regard to being a resource for those that are without legal status, we are not recommending that in light of the risk associated with that. And when I talk about risk, you know, generally I'm referring to our SB4 requirements under state law in conjunction with some of our grant certifications and how those may be construed. So generally speaking, when we say it's high risk, it's because those may be invoked. Moving on to 10, which is city staff directly providing Know Your Rights training, and a similar request that was made to what Austin officers have in their general manual, and an instruction that they're told to give before they ask about whether somebody's status is lawful, is not something that we recommend incorporating or capturing. And again, based on the same conjunction of constraints that we're faced with SB4 and grant certifications, and instead would be recommending that we continue to pursue the Know Your Rights information through third parties, and that way it makes sure that we're not delving into an area that's of high risk for us. We've also heard the request about a council policy potentially that would preclude masks by federal law enforcement. We are monitoring litigation. There was a California state law that was passed to this effect. It's currently on hold. It was determined to be preempted. We understand, and you all are monitoring equally, states and jurisdictions across the country that are trying different formulations of what might be done. We'll continue to monitor that to be able to report back on those efforts. But at this point, it is not something we recommend doing. Moving into evaluation and proposals for us to evaluate. In that category, the proposal that there be a justice fund that's similar to actions that we've taken in the past with regard to justice fund activity. This is something that could be further evaluated that would support nonprofits potentially that are providing the support to those with legal status, and you know, that may have experienced some sort of civil rights violation or that sort of thing as a result of ICE activity. That's within the realm of things that we could continue to evaluate for your consideration. We've got a couple different ones that are related to detention facilities, and so you see that first arise in item 13. We can continue to evaluate that in conjunction with some of the other requests on detention facilities and sort of how we may affect those through land use. Again, we're talking about not federal detention facilities like the one we're currently faced with, but those that are potentially for profit and would be forward-looking, so in the future. Number 14, with regard to council policy and whether we enter into contracts or other things with entities that are providing support to ICE. We have a number of those requests that are part of the resolution that we could continue to evaluate, and we'll report back on those if that is something you want us to consider as we continue to study these. Again, you see that appear in the resolution item, which we have here as number 15, connected to facility activities in 16, and that is, again, because we have very specific type of rules that we have to follow for purposes of how we affect and change our land use rules. The passage of the resolution could then start the path forward for us to continue to evaluate that and do the necessary fact-finding to potentially affect those rules. With regard to number 17, the discussion of what we would like to see as part of our federal agenda and what is part of our priority and how we articulate that would be part of the discussion with you all to tease out what those priorities are as we move forward in evaluating. Moving on to 18, when we do hear from you today as part of this discussion, understanding what public signage would be and what is the proposal when we draw a little bit more finely tuned to that. We weren't quite sure when we saw that as part of the request in the memo what that might say or what specifically what signage may be envisioned by that so that we can be more specific about our response to you and our evaluation. So that is certainly something we'd want to hear back from you on in terms of more of the specificity in mind there, or if there's examples you've seen in other places that you would like us to explore. Moving on to 19, that's an area where we also have a question with regard to training for city staff. As I mentioned earlier, we do have underway the training so that staff is in a position to be able to react and respond properly and help facilitate in the event that we have, and when I say facilitate, I mean in a orderly way, that there be an understanding of what the expectations are if we have any federal officials that show up on city property, specifically ICE. But separate and apart from that, weren't quite sure what the thought was or what the specificity of the training for city staff on rights and responsibilities related to the prevention of harm. So if we could hear more from you on that in terms of what that might be, what that might look like, that would be very helpful to us. And moving on to our next slide, and continuing with the items outlined in the memo and that are subject to the resolution, we've got topics that relate to vendor accountability, non-contracting policies, and procurement standards and value-based criteria, which we believe related to an earlier item in the request for follow-up, but has more specificity to it. So the idea would be that we could come back and talk to you about the categories of contracts that we could affect, some statutorily, such as low bid. We don't have the ability to affect those procurement process as they are set out by statute. So what might be in that bucket of things that we could, and then have a further discussion about the priorities within that as you continue to evaluate options. We've got insurance, liability, and risk exposure, which falls into sort of the procurement bucket that we were just discussing. With regard to item 24 and use of city resources, this is another area where it would be helpful for us to hear more specificity from you in terms of what that particular request is referring to, so that we have the ability to be able to evaluate that specifically for you. And then the intergovernmental coordination and legal safeguards, that seems to be one where that is baked into the evaluation as a matter of course, because we're necessarily providing that sort of legal evaluation as part and parcel of some of the other items, but just wanted to be sure that that's the intent behind that request. And lastly, the memo calling for the resolution also asked to evaluate opportunities on holding federal law enforcement officers accountable. And just for purposes of the evaluation is just understanding that we would be talking about within the domain that we have, which is within our jurisdiction, and not anything that's going to be sort of preempted or something that we can't do as a result of it not being within our jurisdiction. So lastly, what the intent of today's discussion is for us to continue to hear from you on the direction in conjunction with your action on the resolution, and then obviously sort of restating, and we have a great appreciation for your approach in terms of you all understanding that, you know, this is within the confines of us working within the parameters of federal and state law that we have to live within in our own roles. And that we wanted to relay, because we know that, or at least our sense is from both the discussion on the 22nd and in the resolution, you know, how could the city be most impactful? We want to be sure that there's no mismet expectations, because we will not be able to prevent immigration enforcement within San Antonio. And so we just want to reiterate the constraints that we have to live within. We know that you understand those, but it's important for us to calibrate public's expectations as well. And our hope is that within 30 days, we can provide an updated timeline on the specificity that is within the resolution and within the items that you've given us, so that we can continue to evaluate according to the direction that you've given us. So with that, thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Liz. You alluded to a grant, and just for everyone's edification, if you could please elaborate on what that is, because of course that is contingent on this body's desire, willingness to apply for that, and then potentially accept those grant funds. But you alluded to it, so I want to make sure everyone understands what you're referencing. So if you'd please elaborate.
Mayor, I'll take that one. So there are, as we've seen over the course of 2025, federal grant assurances, really for a number of different things that we receive, have changed. And so, in particular, there are upcoming grants that we are working through the state and other cities. Some of the federal grant assurance that Liz is referring to seems to be on hold at the state and federal level in terms of deadlines, and so we're still trying to work through what those things are, and none of them have been final. And I think there is one grant in particular that we are working through, but as I sit here today, I don't have. I have a medium level of confidence that it'll change before the deadlines get established. And part of that is making sure that we keep you all informed, because ultimately the application and certainly the acceptance of those grants need to be approved by council. And so we are walking in eyes wide open as we pursue those grant opportunities.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify the agency that this body still has when it comes to accepting those grants, which they may limit those options as Liz described. Okay. We have several members of the public that have signed up, and then we will bring you back up, Liz. Go ahead. Excuse me? What is that? Oh, there's a clarification. Councilman McKee Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Would you mind just quickly stating what feedback specifically you're looking for? I know you mentioned the signage piece, but can you lay out very clearly what all direction you're looking for? Thank you.
Yes. So going back to, presumably, if the resolution passes today, we will continue the work on the evaluation that is the subject of the resolution. In conjunction with that, and to be sure that we're evaluating the pieces that, with specificity within that. So if we go to item 18, which was the signage that you referred to, if we go to 19, which talks about the city staff training and making sure that we understand what that entails in light of again, just sort of, we have the ongoing staff training that's already underway, but does this envision something different? It sounds different based on the way it's described, and so we just want to be sure that we understand what that request is for us to evaluate. Looking at item 24, the use of city resources and services, just sort of understanding what the expectation is with regard to that category. Is it just sort of making sure that when we bring items to you all, sort of you understand, you know, how it falls into the buckets of other things we're doing? Just want to be sure that we understand what the request is there. And then with regard to 25, we're operating off of the assumption that those items are just part and parcel of what we're doing in conjunction with all the others in light of sort of the ongoing evaluation from a legal perspective, as well as looking at ways of, you know, coordinating if there's other governmental entities involved. So not so much in and of itself a separate thing, but we're operating off the assumption it's sort of baked into the requests of all the others. Thank you.
Liz, actually, one more. Sorry about that. Okay, when you also say, in case there are other things, it looks like you are also looking for some potential feedback on 26, evaluate opportunities to hold federal law enforcement officers accountable. And you're asking for something, if that is distinct from what SAPD is already expected to do, if they see their responsibility to report potentially illegal activity, correct?
So, Mayor, I think I'll just reiterate what you said in that we assume that the work there would be for us to stay within the jurisdiction, which is what you just described.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So 25 and 26, 25, the intent is, this is what we do as matter of business, it sounds like, as in your words, and then 26 is more of what we are currently doing and what is already the expectation and is already being practiced.
Correct. And if there's anything outside of that assumption that we should be aware of, to let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have several members of the public signed up to speak, and I will call them in the order that they signed up. Are we good? Are we good? Okay. Yeah. Mariano Alanis, followed by Enjolras Ruiz, and then Priscilla Olivares. You each have 3 minutes to speak, and I'd ask that you line up after the individual.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. For the record, my name is Mariano Alanis, resident in taxpayer District 2. Today, I'm formally submitting an addendum to the resolution supporting the evaluation of strategies to protect all San Antonians. This addendum is intended to enhance the resolution by incorporating cultural components and reinforcing the city's commitment to well-being of every resident. May I read the addendum? Okay.
Sure.
Mr. Audiovisual guy, can I present it? I'm not sure.
Audiovisual support, thank you.
I got 2 minutes, so. Resolution to, I'm going to read it really fast, I'm sorry. Resolution support evaluation of strategies to protect San Antonians. Addendum, resolution support evaluation strategies to support all San Antonians. Sorry. Resolution support City Council of San Antonio, Texas, recognizing the historical cultural significance of Marian devotion within the city of San Antonio, expressing the symbolic hope for protection, love, and peace for all who call this city home, including citizens, immigrants, and visitors. Whereas the city of San Antonio is a diverse, multicultural community whose heritage has been shaped by many traditions, including influence by early Spanish settlers and region's longstanding Catholic and Marian traditions. And whereas Marian devotion, honoring Virgin Mary, has historically emphasized themes of compassion, protection, maternal care, peace, values, which continue to resonate with many residents today. Whereas these themes are reflected in cultural expressions such as festivals, processions, artwork, community gatherings, and celebrate unity, empathy, and shared dignity of all people. Whereas the city of San Antonio residents, citizens, immigrants alike draw inspiration from these traditions as symbols, hope, solidarity, desire, peace amid challenges among diverse communities. And whereas the city council acknowledges that its role is to recognize cultural heritage as manner consistent with constitutional principles and ceremonial resolutions may express shared values such as community protection, harmony, mutual respect, and whereas the City Council seeks to affirm and support all communities who strive to cultivate love, compassion, peace within San Antonio, contributing to the safety and well-being of all residents regardless of origin, status, and background. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of San Antonio, Texas, that Section 1, the City Council hereby recognize Marian devotion as an important culture and historical tradition embraced by San Antonio residents, reflecting values of compassion, protection, and peace. Section 2, City Council expresses its hope, intention for the protection and well-being of all who live, work in, visit San Antonio, including longtime citizens, new arrivals, immigrants, communities, affirming the inherent dignity of every person. Section 3, City Council commends the cultural organizations, community groups, faithful communities who tradition promote love, hospitality, unity, and peaceful coexistence, enriching city's social cultural fabric. Section 4, this resolution is a ceremonial expression of cultural recognition, honoring the profound influence Marian traditions and have many San Antonio families, communities. It does not establish a mandate or any religious practice, but rather acknowledges with...
Sir,
Sorry.
thank you.
Thank you.
You can submit the rest for the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjolras Ruiz, followed by Priscilla Olivares, and then Sarah Cruz.
Hello? Hello? Check. Okay. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I just wanted to thank you for having this on the addendum and having this on the meeting. I am excited with the solutions that were proposed today. I look forward to seeing you work more on it and iron out a plan so we can better protect the citizens of San Antonio and better protect and secure their rights. Thank you. I yield my time to Genia Black. Thank you.
1 second, let me find her. Oh, there she is. Okay. Genia Black, are you here already? I'm sorry. Okay. So, ma'am, you have a full 3 minutes. For those, in case it helps anyone else, once you start your time, you can't cede the remainder of your time until you tell us at the very beginning that you're going to do that. So, ma'am, you'll have 3 minutes when I call you. Okay. So right now we've got Priscilla Olivares, followed by Sarah Cruz, and then Olivia De La Garza.
And Sarah Cruz has given me her time. She's here in the back.
Okay. Sarah Cruz, okay. So you have 6 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Priscilla Olivares. I'm a senior policy attorney with the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. Our organization is also a member of the SA Stands Coalition. I want to first thank those in City Council who put forth this request to have this very important discussion. I also want to thank those in our community, some who are here today, and who are standing alongside our immigrant neighbors asking for all of our rights to be protected. San Antonio has seen a significant increase in immigration enforcement and harm to our communities. With the recent purchase by DHS of the ICE warehouse, we know that means more unlawful arrests of our community members. It means more of their rights will be violated. It also means that SAPD would be called on to assist in some capacity in those unlawful arrests. This highlights the need for more transparency. Transparency from our leadership regarding SAPD's collaboration with ICE, transparency regarding the number of violations against our communities at the hands of ICE officers, and transparency regarding the legal rationale for protecting a lawless agency like ICE and allowing them to continue to target our San Antonio residents without any accountability. Communities deserve to know why SAPD honors ICE administrative warrants, which are not legally sufficient for a constitutional search. And let's be clear, nothing in SB 4 2017 requires compliance with these so-called warrants. If there is legal guidance saying otherwise, the community deserves to know and see that legal guidance. I want to speak on what was presented today, specifically item 10 regarding Know Your Rights training and providing Know Your Rights information during interactions with police. Labeling the distribution of constitutional rights information as high risk is shocking. What law or statute says informing community of their rights, such as the right to remain silent about immigration status, is high risk? Where in SB 4 2017 or in any state law does it prevent the distribution of this information? I myself am looking at our constitutional rights as the basis for providing Know Your Rights training and information. I would be curious to know what law the city's legal team is looking to. As a legal expert, as a community member, I am deeply troubled by this assessment. As city council members who are residents of this community, whose rights could also be violated, you should be deeply troubled by that assessment. ICE wants us to believe we are powerless. ICE wants you to believe that you are powerless. This is yet another lie from the administration. Yes, City Council must comply with state laws, and that includes SB 4 2017, but our Constitution still matters. We are seeking transparency and accountability for those collaboration efforts because this collusion is violating our constitutional rights and putting people's lives at risk. I put forth the Freedom Cities resolution example from Austin as a potential option to provide that transparency. The Freedom City resolution required the Austin Police Department to document and report its assistance to ICE. Any collaboration efforts between SAPD and ICE should not be happening behind closed doors. Any discussion regarding the legal rationale for defending the lawless acts of ICE rather than defending our constitutional rights should not be happening behind closed doors. So I'm asking the city to look into different ways it can provide transparency and accountability for any time SAPD chooses to collude with ICE. I'm also asking for transparency regarding the legal rationale for continuing to comply with ICE beyond what is required. And merely saying SB 4 2017 or the Supremacy Clause is insufficient. Thank you again to those in City Council who are listening to our community. We recognize the support, and I look forward to more of these discussions and seeing more efforts to protect residents and protect families and keep them together. Thank you.
Olivia De La Garza. Olivia De La Garza, followed by Jonah Wilson Leos, and then Jessica Solis.
Hello, Mayor. My name is Olivia De La Garza, and I'm here. I have a copy of the Constitution of the United States of America, and right now I'm trying to study law to become a lawyer. And we had a former Supreme Court Justice by the name of Ruth Ginsburg, and she was put on stage in front of everybody, the nation, one time, and her colleague were asked, "Ma'am and sir, do illegal immigrants have constitutional rights?" And her colleague said, "No, absolutely not. If they're illegal, they have no U.S. constitutional rights." And under the 14th Amendment, Ruth Ginsburg interrupted and said, it says, "You shall, or no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the process of laws, nor deny to any person and she stressed any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And she stated that that means that whether you're here legally or illegally, if you're in the jurisdiction of the United States soil, you are protected under constitutional law. And I want to ask, why did federal officials go ahead and try to buy this center without acknowledging or asking you, Mayor? You run the city, and we also have a manager that runs the city. Why were y'all not asked if this is okay? Why were the citizens of San Antonio not asked whether we want to fund a profit prison? It's not about immigration anymore. Not when they're detaining 2-month-old babies in Dilley, Texas, and they're detaining 14-year-olds, and they're depriving them of their basic civil rights. And so I ask, why? Why would they want this in our community? We don't. I don't want this in my community, especially if they didn't ask you first. You have a lot of power. You run our city. Everything should be brought and forth of you, the council members, and the citizens. Each and every one of y'all should have been notified before them trying to open a profit prison. These people that run these prisons, it's all about money. It's not about illegal immigrants. Nobody wants people that commit crimes in our country. Throw them out, that's fine. But when you're detaining 2 months old and you're detaining 5-year-olds, that's not about immigration anymore. And people need to wake up. It's not about immigration anymore. And they still have rights under the Constitution of the United States of America. And I thank you for your time.
Jonah Wilson Leos, followed by Jessica Solis, and then Victoria Ramirez. Please line up.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to address the audience and just say, look what happens when we organize. Look what we can get done once we unite and we really take to the streets, and look at the pressure that we can exert on the council to actually do something. And to the council, thank you for holding this meeting. The presentation that was given just a moment ago, they were told a lot of things that you can and cannot do, and a lot of things that are high risk. And I would just like to say that your community has shown that it is willing to fight for the defense of this city, and I would just like to ask that you do the same. Thank you.
Jessica Solis. Jessica Solis, followed by Victoria Ramirez, and then Isabel Herrera.
Thank you, City Council. I'd like to commend everyone here who has taken the first steps to really making this city fight back for the people that are being attacked in our communities. As we're seeing billions being spent towards this ICE budget, we're also seeing our economy crumble under this. We're seeing empty businesses, empty restaurants. You know, you see waiters are going home without any tips because there's no patrons visiting their restaurants. We're seeing businesses having to close down. We're seeing our culture crumble under this. I don't know if y'all went to Fiestas Patrias last year, but that was the smallest turnout I've ever seen, because what's the point of celebrating culture when people are being kidnapped and people are afraid to go out? Students aren't going to school. I've heard stories of students not wanting to go to school because they're afraid their parents are going to be taken, and they want to be there with them. They don't want their parents to go to work, and people aren't going to work as much because they know that workers are being targeted at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. So we're seeing people not go to work. We're seeing families are going to keep struggling economically. Businesses are going to keep struggling economically. So yes, it does affect our city in a way where City Council does need to think about how to make our community feel safer. And that doesn't happen when we build an ICE inhumane warehouse on our east side, who we've been trying to make promises to about helping them prosper. Would anyone agree to building a prison next to schools and parks? I don't see that happening. So why are we okay with an ICE warehouse? And yes, they're gonna say it's gonna be humane, but where have we seen that ICE has ever had a humane detention cap? Yeah, so why would we let the federal government do this to our community when it's something we would never dare to do to our community? It's important to fight back because it's obvious the federal government doesn't care about its people. They wouldn't be hunting people on the streets. Our DPS force wouldn't be used as kidnap enforcers instead of actually caring for public safety. Things are gonna get worse, and it's important for cities to start standing up and fighting back. Other cities are doing it. We should be those cities too, because I don't know how long we can keep going this way, and everyone needs to be standing up at this moment. Thank you.
Victoria Ramirez, followed by Isabel Herrera, and then Ronald Farnsworth. Please line up.
Hello, City Council. First, I just wanted to go ahead and thank all of the City Council members that brought this memo forward. This is exactly the kind of action and really the type of action that we need, that San Antonians have been in this room demanding for weeks. So thank you for actually hearing our call and acting upon it. I want to speak very directly about why so many people are here today. Of course, we're here because of the constant ICE terror that's happening in our city, but ICE secretly bought a warehouse in our city with really not anyone knowing in this body knowing about that. And I think that speaks volumes to how federal agencies like ICE view San Antonio. They know that this is something that we're not going to put up with. They know that this is something that we will absolutely resist. So they had to go ahead and do it in the shadows to go ahead and try and usurp this body. So as we're going ahead and we're pushing forward, we're moving forward to go ahead and resist this detention center, I just want to make that clear to you. ICE thinks that this is their city, and quite frankly, it's not their city. It's our city. And I want to speak directly to the detention center specifically. As someone that was at the Dilley Detention Center a couple of weeks ago, getting pepperballed and tear gassed with my brothers and sisters, that were just simply asking for children to be free from, let's not just call it a detention center, let's call a spade, it's a concentration camp. All we did was we wanted to see children out of a concentration camp, and ICE, well, specifically the Texas State Troopers, were deployed on us just because we wanted children free. Now, if a detention center is allowed to be built in San Antonio, what you're allowing is not just a literal concentration camp to be a hop and a skip away from Martin Luther King Boulevard, where we have our largest MLK march in the United States. I mean, what does that say, having a concentration camp a hop and a skip away from Dr. King's legacy? That's a shame. That's something we should absolutely resist. But you're also going to let San Antonians be brutalized every single day, because one thing I know about this city is that we are not going to let a concentration camp happen in our city. That's right. How disgusting would it be? I'm with PSL San Antonio. We have an office on the east side. Every time I drive into the east side, I am met with beautiful murals of the diversity of our city in MLK. But what's going to be right next to it is going to be a concentration camp. This is absolutely unacceptable, which is why I completely support this motion, because no stone can go unturned, so that way we can go ahead and combat this, fight it, and make sure it never happens again. Thank you.
Isabel Herrera. Isabel Herrera. Okay. Ronald Farnsworth, followed by Mackenzie Winters, and then Nicolette Ardiente.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about the need to oppose the concentration camp that is being built on the east side. That is an appropriate term. A jail is a place where people are held for charges. A prison is where people are held after they've been convicted, and a concentration camp is where certain ethnicities are held who have not been charged with anything or been convicted. I will not engage in the Orwellian whitewash of calling it a detention center. I will be referring to it as a concentration camp. I'd like to thank the mayor for her strongly worded letter to the congressional delegation and members of the city for calling this meeting. The reason for opposing the construction of this concentration camp are primarily moral and humanitarian, but I would like to discuss logistical and financial reasons for opposing this. I believe the city is overly cowed to some extent by SB 4, and I think it is outrageous that the legal action against this city was initiated by city employees, the San Antonio Police Department. Perhaps it is again time to attempt to decertify that union. But the costs of allowing this are huge. If we are to take lessons from Portland and Minneapolis, the building of a concentration camp next to a school, no less, are huge. Such a facility would invite huge protests. There are more undocumented people in San Antonio than in all of Minnesota. 10,000 people showed up for one of the No Kings demonstrations. ICE has used chemical weapons against peaceful protesters in Portland and towards a smaller group in Dilley, where I was gassed. This is a very problematic. Next to a school in Minnesota, it's resulted in schools closing, classes needing to be held by video. Protests here would likely result in an overreaction by the federal government, and we would be faced with the same disruption, if not worse, that Minneapolis has faced. There would be huge increases in police costs pursuant to increased security needs. Many of our neighbors, like in Minneapolis, would refuse to leave their houses, resulting in closing of shops and restaurants, rendering a hit to the economy of a city whose finances are already precarious. What can we do? We can gum up the opening by slowing approval for sewage, by requiring environmental impact statement before it opens, by passing zoning rules to stop its operation.
Sir,
we could do all of that.
Thank you, sir.
I just finished. If Donald Trump can delay justice for 2 years, we can gum up the system for 3 to delay injustice.
Thank you. Mackenzie Winters. Mackenzie Winters. Okay. Nicolette Ardiente. Nicolette Ardiente. Okay. Vox Rose, followed by Antonio Diaz, and then Diana Flores Uriegas. Vox Rose. Okay. Antonio and Diana, please line up. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rose Sanchez. I'm relinquishing my time to Vox Rose.
I'm Rosa Evans, and I am also.
Okay, you have 9 minutes. Thank you.
Firstly, I want to say thank you for addressing the problems and attempting to open the avenue for conversation about potential solutions. Okay. The system isn't broken. The deportation machine is working exactly as designed. They use the narrative of gang members and drug traffickers to justify breaking down your door, taking your children, and arresting you, if you're lucky enough to make it to arrest. And then they take you to a detention center to profit off of your incarceration. But really, a detention center is just a sanitized way to say a prison. Let's call them what they really are, chain gang internment camps. You all are sitting here with your shoulders relaxed, eyes glazing over, pretending your hands are tied, complicit in why this infrastructure exists so pervasively today. Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton are weak sadists with Trump derangement syndrome who enjoy profiting off of marginalized people's pain and suffering. They are not leaders, they are profiteers. On February 6, 2026, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a ruling that redefined who qualifies as an applicant under admission. It declared that people living in the U.S. without inspection, a civil violation, not a criminal one, could now be treated as applicants seeking admission. People can now be mandatorily detained and kept in a cell as long as possible to profit from your incarceration. This ruling also mandates detention without a bond hearing, which is a violation of due process rights. But here's the contradiction. If this is about criminals, why are people being held in mandatory detention? and mandatory indefinite detention for civil violations? Why was the time to appeal a denied application shortened to 10 days? Why must they pay $1,500 to file that appeal, only to be at the mercy of the federal circuit court judges who are encouraged to dismiss your case if they're not interested? And the bond amounts? $10,000 to $15,000 just to get out of detention. Another violation of due process. People, not just citizens, people are protected under the law, including the right to request a bond, but now they can't even get that either. Meanwhile, our elected officials are doubling down, using policy to exploit and weaponize the law. And while you do it, 18-month-old Amalia, kidnapped and held at the Dilley facility where Liam Conejo Ramos was detained, was denied her medicine. She suffered diarrhea, vomiting, respiratory failure, pneumonia, COVID-19, RSV, and severe respiratory distress. According to an article by Bailey Richards on People.com published on February 8, 2026, she was taken to the facility's medical clinic multiple times, but was only given fever medication. CoreCivic profited from her illness until they thought she might die. She fought for her life at a San Antonio hospital for 10 days while the Fifth Circuit Appellate Court passed legislation ensuring more babies like her are kidnapped. And Amelia is only one of many. There's another baby in that facility, a 2-month-old, trapped in what Congressman Joaquin Castro called a trailer park prison. It's a part of a broader systemic quilt of brutality on Black and brown bodies, a quilt stitched from the Trail of Tears, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, the medical exploitation of Black women in the name of research and progress, and chain gangs. San Antonio council members, you like to pretend your hands are tied, but you set up this infrastructure. You surrendered local policy to federal control. You allowed the dissolution of local legitimacy, and now you're blaming the system. And with the conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court and Trump's DOJ, the worst is yet to come. More predatory policy and surveillance, and even less protection for Black and brown people. Our ancestors turned captivity into creation, and the bones of the oppressed into the bones of the nation, in one of the most powerful transmutations in existence. From the soil they were forced to till, to the steel they were forced to forge, cotton they were forced to pick, languages they were forced to forget, children brutalized. And we are repaid time and time again with spit in our eyes, a boot to the teeth, and the taste of our own blood in our mouth. I'd like to use the rest of our group time to talk about the conditions you will subject our neighbors to at the facility on the east side if you allow this development to continue. So I'm going to use a video I watched by Joaquin Congressman Castro yesterday on Facebook, discussing what he witnessed himself at the STPC, South Texas ICE Processing Center. He met many mothers, fathers, and children. Their uniforms were color-coded by threat level, which is interesting given that the population is mostly non-criminals. He stated that the guards are bullies who taunt sick women and make fun of children. And he said private equity groups are involved in this, profiting off of this. Okay, Blackstone, who owns Geo Group, Carlyle, who owns CoreCivic, Kohlberg, Kravis, Roberts, KKR, who invests in Geo Group, Apollo, who has a stake in private prisons, and Parsons, a for-profit company. The reality is that these are peonage camps. People are made to cook, clean, and do essential labor to keep for-profit facilities running. To keep for-profit facilities running. Sound familiar? It should. Why do you need such a deeply interconnected system for people you say you're going to deport? Because it isn't about removal. It's about profit, control, and surveillance, and drones, and flock cameras, and ISIS Fortify, and Clearview AI. Today, like last week and the week before that, we are calling for direct action. We are calling on communities, utility providers, and legal advocates to refuse to support these facilities. We are calling on people to stop giving ICE detention centers utilities. We are calling on communities to block the expansion of these facilities by demanding utilities providers do not supply these services to these facilities and holding them accountable if they do, demanding that local governments do not issue permits for their expansion, using legal avenues to challenge their zoning, environmental, and safety approvals, boycotting companies that profit from these facilities, supporting lawsuits that challenge the legality of these facilities, organizing community resistance through protests, legal aid, and public pressure, using public records to expose how these facilities violate health, safety, and environmental laws, supporting the campaign on freedomunited.com to end slavery in ICE detention centers, and collecting 5,000 signatures to pressure lawmakers. They are less than 700 signatures away. Because these are prisons, systems of profit, systems of control, and we will not allow them to exist in our city. As W.E.B. Du Bois said, either America will destroy ignorance or ignorance will destroy the United States. As Toni Morrison said, if you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then it is your job to empower somebody else. And as Malcolm X said, you cannot separate peace from freedom because no one can be at peace unless he has his freedom. The system is not broken. It's working exactly as designed, and we must tear it down. So I ask you, will you be a part of the movement or will you be a part of the machine?
Antonio Diaz, Diana Flores Uriegas, Eli Gomez, please line up.
Not yet. Khalid Linesi. Yatahe Abini. Mr. Ruiz will be giving me his time as well. Pedro Ruiz.
You have 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you. We appreciate having an opportunity to speak on this very grievous matter affecting our community. That SB4, we need, I mean, you all need it, but we as a community are asking that you do something against SB4. Within it violates our constitutional rights. It racially profiles the majority of San Antonio's community. Something has to be done to address SB4. Whether the Republicans accept sanctuary cities in our state or not, there must be sanctuary for our constitutional rights. We cannot just roll over and allow the corrupt, trumped federal government at this point to violate every single constitutional right that we have fought and struggled to earn because we didn't always have it. Those of you that may be too young to remember civil rights or know that we as well, because of our skin color, our ethnicity, our roots to this land, have been a marginalized community, even though we are the majority of this community. We will not endure this anymore. We're supposed to be progressing, moving forward, not moving backwards. These are concentration camps. In Europe, millions died in concentration camps. That's what we fought against. My father fought in World War II to end this practice of enslavement in concentration camps, of genocidal practices that these governments practice. Now we're going to do it. We're accepting this. In private prisons, in federal prisons, Donald Trump is using the federal government as an iron fist to quiet all dissension, to quiet all voices against his practices that are so corrupt and vile We must speak up against it. But you, as our local representatives, must come up with a remedy towards this. You must, legally. I know that federal government trumps, using the word, through a Supremacy Act, that cities or states cannot stop its actions. But normally or generally, these federal prison camps are built outside developed areas, not alongside schools and churches and businesses that it will negatively impact. So I am glad that you all are coming up with a resolution, because that is at least what you are able to do under our city charter, that you must at least write something, propose something against this private federal prison that's coming to our city. It would have been good if you would have had the powers to condemn that building, or somehow have the right to deny them the faculties that they need to run it, the permits. But I know as a city, a council, you are unable to do this. But we can file a lawsuit against SB4. We have a lawyer, we have the funds to do it as a city, and I think as many elected officials, as many municipalities that rise up and file lawsuits against our own state for coming up with this evil legislation, simply just to deny people sanctuary. People that are here actually filing for an immigration status, trying to do it the legal way, can't do it because they're being arrested at immigration court. How right is that? And that is the thing. To try to do the right thing. Many great activists and speakers in the past have spoken about freedoms, have spoken about struggles, and have spoken about being silent as being complicit to evil. So don't be silent. Please don't be silent. I know Mr. White is silent. He's not even here today, and you don't even see him up on the screen. He decides when and who he listens to and who he shuts out. And he's an elected official of District 10, and yet he decides who he wants to listen to in the community and who can just shut out. That is a form of government these Republicans in the state are doing. I'm talking about Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton. All these are, they're tied to the hip to Donald Trump, and they're evil as can be. And we need to oppose it. We need to speak up against it. And you're going to see a lot of people get hurt here in San Antonio protesting that facility, because if Mr. Pretty and Ms. Good were murdered in Minneapolis, we will fight just as hard here. So just imagine what's going to happen to our community.
Diana Flores Uriegas.
These walls between us. Good morning. This song represents the people, because all we've been doing was getting traumatized all the time. No recognition for the indigenous. And I look at all of you, look at yourselves. You look like me. The only one that doesn't is probably the white person over here. But we're all mixed, okay? We all have to help each other. We all got blood in us that pertains to all races. You have to think about, we don't want another warehouse of ICE. We got 2 already. Break the wall in your heart out. How much more trauma do we have to go through? Yes, I'm shaking because I'm tired of all that's going on. And our grandparents have been crying and crying and praying and everything, and nothing works. And I don't want to be shut up. Women's Day is coming up. And I don't want to be I don't. I'm tired. Enough is enough. Remember, your kids look like me and your grandkids. You want to see them in here? I don't want to go to the store and I forgot my wallet or carry my birth certificate or papers, because it could get stolen too. Not mine only, everybody. So think about it. These people come here to work. What do we say when we come to a meeting or whatever? We pledge to the legends, to the flag. Freedom for all. Where's that freedom? Y'all are losing it. Y'all are taking bribes and all this stuff underneath the tables.
Ma'am, you
and
can
selling us off. Quit it.
Separately, I understand there's an individual with disabilities that would like to speak, and I'll allow it. If they want to make their way, we can add them to the end. Eli Gomez, followed by Jonathan Melendez, followed by Pamela Osborne. Okay. Eli Gomez. Eli Gomez. Okay. Jonathan Melendez, followed by Pamela Osborne, and then Noel Segapelli. Please line up.
Melendez, and I'm speaking in a personal capacity regarding agenda item number 4. I support the people of this community. I support our local and federal law enforcement, and because of that, I cannot support a measure that risks deepening political division, discriminating against local businesses who contract with the federal government, or pitting members of our community against one another. Agenda item number 4 undermines federal immigration services while amplifying a narrative that could jeopardize public safety and potentially place federal funding at risk. Local government does not have the authority to police or impose mandates on federal institutions. This principle is well established in the U.S. Constitution and affirmed by the courts. This body cannot dictate the purpose or operation of a federal facility, nor can it compel the federal government to comply with local zoning regulations in a way that interferes with its mission. It is also important to remember that San Antonio is not a sanctuary city. Engaging in actions or adopting policies that limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement or could be perceived as limiting cooperation with federal immigration enforcement could jeopardize critical federal funding. That funding supports infrastructure and essential services for our most vulnerable residents. Additionally, Section 1, line item 5, references the development of training for city staff related to, and I quote, the prevention of harm caused by immigration enforcement, end quote. As a taxpayer, I am concerned about allocating local dollars towards initiatives that may place federal funding at risk or politicize city staff roles. City employees should remain focused on serving residents not navigating politically charged mandates. This item carries real consequences, and after the speeches are over and the cameras are off, it is our community that must live with these decisions. Let's protect our federal partnerships, let's protect our funding, and let's avoid policies that create division rather than unity. Thank you for your time.
Pamela Osborne. Pamela Osborne. Okay. Noel Segapelli. Noel Segapelli. Go ahead. Followed by Debbie Strain.
Hello there. My name is Noel Segapelli, and before I get started, I would like to thank everyone for coming out here today to continue this conversation. Although it is never easy, it's very much necessary. As much as I would like to continue to talk about the similarities about Nazi Germany and what is happening here today, I would like to expand the spotlight on a woman named Emma Tenyanyuka, who at just 21 years old led the 1938 San Antonio pecan shellers strike. On January 31st, she led up to 12,000 pecan shellers in a walkout against wage reduction, and rightfully so, because all they wanted to do was feed their families. Now, Emma got nicknamed La Pasionaria, the passion flower, due to her passionate, fiery, and disruptive speaking style. And as a fiery, passionate, disruptive Latina myself, I like this woman. This was a revolution led by women, started by one young woman. Could you imagine what we could do in numbers, in solidarity, in union, no division? If ICE continues to be infiltrated into our community, you will lose the very essence of San Antonio. There will no longer be the sweet aroma of pan dulce, made with love, coming out of the oven to be paired with your morning cafe. Hispanic culture is the heartbeat of San Antonio. I mean, look at the street signs, the murals on the side of our buildings. Our story is everywhere. These are our teachers, our abuelitas, families, store owners, vendors, musicians, artists, my high school art teacher, my friends, neighbors, and abuelitas that pray over us in the supermarket just because they had the time that day. My great aunt Guadalupe Maria Gutierrez, who was a flamenco dancer, my aunt Jackie Rivera, and brothers and sisters. I understand that we are in the Bible Belt, so a lot of you uphold Christian values. So let me say this, that these are people who have souls, a beating heart, blood that runs through their veins that should not be shed, aspirations and human rights like you and me. They are not insects to be exterminated. What a silly fight this is, a silly division to be made out of this. It only takes one person in power to start to dismantle an unethical regime. Although throughout history, minorities and vulnerable people have had an extreme resilience, but it saddens me that we have to have an adapt or die mentality. That is not a free America. What good is a melting pot if you're picking out the best ingredients? We need more passion flowers. You have the power to do the right thing. And I'll leave you with this. Michio Kushi was a Japanese educator and an advocate for a healthier world. And he once warned the dangers of believing in dead people's beliefs. The only threat to America I see are the terrorists gunning down civilians and U.S. civilians in the streets, being puppets for people who believe in dead people's beliefs. My name is Noel Segapelli, and I thank you.
Debbie Strain, and then Hilario Hernandez, followed by Johnny Rivers. So Debbie Strain. Is Debbie here? No, okay. Hilario Hernandez. Sir, do you need a translator?
Yes, I am Hilario Hernandez.
Okay.
The city took a Sufi section and Santicos took a section of sidewalk. I fell in it and he put me in the wheelchair. I cannot move. I talked to Ted Cruz. I went to Washington, D.C. to talk to him, and he wouldn't listen. Nobody wanted to listen about the bad accident. And all they want to give me for my life is $150,000. I did accept it. And you're not going to get nothing. Or being an American citizen, choose justice for all and they don't choose justice. They ain't no choose and justice at all. Because basically when you're poor and you have no money, no backing to back you up, everybody wants to be listened to, but they don't listen to you. It makes you want to cry. It makes you want to cry. But I'm trying my best to be heard because it took us 10 minutes and 35 and no one listens. No one listens to you. Nobody wants to listen. So what I do tell me. You want somebody to tell you. If you want a knife, that's what you want. You want some blood. It's taking me to Omaha where they raped me and they called me a redneck. And you want when you ask for help. I'm asking for help. Help. That's all. That's it. And nobody wants to help. Nobody. They all want to look the other way.
Based on what he was speaking about, it sounded like that was related to a sidewalk and infrastructure. John Paterick, if you could just make a note of exactly what he's referencing or what the concern is, thank you. Johnny Rivers, followed by Nicholas Longoria, followed by Omar Garcia.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. First, I'd like to draw attention to Councilmember White, who found this emotional plea amusing for some reason. We got to see him on camera laughing. It was disgusting, disgusting. My name is Johnny Rivers, and I am here to speak about Texas Senate Bill 4 and the expansion of detention infrastructure in our San Antonio. We heard city legal counsel advise what they consider to be high risk and say, we will not be able to limit immigration enforcement and that you, the council, needs to manage public expectation. Respectfully, the public's expectation is not unlimited enforcement. The public's expectation is safety, is liberty, is freedom as guaranteed by our Constitution. History teaches us what has happened when enforcement expands without guardrails. In the 1930s, during the Mexican repatriation, hundreds of thousands of people of Mexican descent were detained and pressured or forced out of this country. Many were United States citizens. Their ethnicity, appearance, and last names were treated as suspicion. During 1954 Operation Wetback, U.S. citizens were again swept up in mass raids because they looked Mexican, often detained first and sorted out later. These are documented chapters of American history. They show that when detention expands rapidly, civil liberties contract. Today, we face not only expanded enforcement under SB 4, but the reality of prolonged and potential indefinite detention structures. Even if individual detentions are technically limited in duration, the indefinite implementation of this enforcement model means generation after generation may grow up under these systems, where detention becomes normalized in our communities. How many generations are we prepared to subject to this style of civil rights erosion? The United States is bound by the Convention Against Torture, which prohibits returning individuals to countries where they face torture. Even if removal originates under state authority, the federal government remains responsible for those protections, and the facilities operating within our city local leadership carry moral responsibility for oversight and transparency. In detention facilities in or near San Antonio that house individuals arrested under SB 4, we must ask, will there be meaningful access to asylum review? What safeguards prevent wrongful detention of U.S. citizens? What independent oversight ensures humane conditions and medical care? What transparency will this council demand? If we cannot limit enforcement, then we must strengthen oversight. If we cannot change state law, then we must insist on constitutional compliance. And finally, in American history, we have never had this level of Latino or Hispanic representation in leadership. We have never had this many decision makers that look like us, that share our lived experience. This moment matters. We did not organize and vote and fight for representation in order for you to settle for an action. If we wanted silence, we would not have worked so hard to elect leaders that understand our communities. I am proud to live in a city like this, and I hope that you are too. Thank you.
Nicholas Longoria. Nicholas Longoria, followed by Omar Garcia, and then Serena Moreno.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nicholas Longoria. I'm from District 7. Thank you for allowing us to speak this morning. For what the thousands of people have been doing the past couple months, we demand that ICE out of San Antonio, not just their presence, but their construction and their harassment, their potential killing of our citizens. Over 20 high school students have walked out across the city since all this started, and unfortunately, as we're seeing, the TEA is affecting that. They're threatening children, and if that is how it's going to be started, I don't want to imagine what ICE would be like if they were in this city. We've already seen them gassing, pepperballing, and brutalizing children in Minneapolis, and I don't want to see that happen here, as I'm sure none of y'all do either. Our immigrant community is fearful, simply trying to live their lives. We don't know if they will we don't know yet if they will contract this concentration camp to a private or for-profit prison group like CoreCivic, but I think we know since Reagan, our government has always contracted out to for-profit groups. How dare they profit off of imprisonment of human beings? I'm asking you again, City Council, and I do thank you for this resolution, but I want to be clear, even if the exploration for how to fight back doesn't return the results we hope for, San Antonians will still expect you to fight back, and when you speak on this concentration camp, be thinking of your audience and your constituents. The people who are ready to join the struggle, who are ready to get politically active but haven't yet, and hopefully speak confidently, because we should all know that progressive change doesn't happen because of a politician decides to end segregation because of a nice thought they had in their head. Richard Nixon was a racist, but he was ultimately the one who oversaw the ending of legal segregation in this country only 60 years ago. No, Nixon was not, didn't believe in what he ultimately did, but he was forced to end segregation because of the millions of Americans across the country who demanding it. If he had ignored them, America as we know it would no longer exist because of the people. So when you speak, will your words be motivating force to the people, or will your words disengage the people and lead them into apathy? Whatever you do to fight for San Antonio and fight against modern-day slavery, slave patrol, that is ICE, because it is not about lack of documentation or crossing illegally. This is about money. The right for the already filthy rich to dominate and profit off of the working people of San Antonio. Thank you.
Omar Garcia. Omar Garcia. Serena Moreno, followed by Erica Alvarado, and then Genia Black.
Hello. My name is Serena Moreno. I am a concerned citizen, deeply concerned.
I look at my city council. Most of us are women. Most of you are women. As far as I'm concerned, this is a public safety issue for women. There are masked men. I'm shaking because I'm absolutely terrified every time I leave my house. And it's not anywhere near as intense that it is here as it is, not yet. This is a public safety concern for each and every one of you sitting up here. You all have, I'm sure, received very, very brutal, ugly, violent comments as you were running for these positions that you're in now. I know you have, because I've read them. You think that these masked men aren't coming for us first? Beautiful, powerful, educated. Baby, they're coming for us first. We're the mothers, the protectors. They're coming for us first. They're coming for our babies because they know that's how they grip us. Help me. Help yourselves. Help all of us. Anyone who's worried about not getting federal funding would sell us out for $20. Help us. I am the treasurer for my local elementary's PTA. Monday morning, I got up to make sure that those second graders had that check in hand so that way they can go over to the museum. There are children in Minneapolis right now who have to cancel their field trips because their educators are afraid that their babies are going to get snatched while they go to the museum. Help me, please, please. I am you, you are me. Help me. Do not let them be here. Do what you can. Please, help me.
Erica Alvarado, followed by Ginia Black, and then Lourdes Zarete.
Hi, my name is Erica Alvarado. I live and work in District 2. I'm sitting here and listening to the legal department say that they need more time, something like 30 days, to further evaluate or straight up advising against something as simple as a Know Your Rights seminar or a sign to hang in the window. It's very disappointing. The people who live in San Antonio deserve transparency, but more so we deserve action from the people sitting before us here today. It's not about managing expectations of community. Y'all see where we're standing on this issue. It's about doing the right thing. Thank you.
Ginia Black. Ginia Black, followed by Lourdes Zarete, and then Brett Owl.
Thank you for addressing citizen concerns today. I am here to urge you to exercise every authority to prevent the operation of the concentration camp coming to our city. First, I had some thoughts about what the city can do legally. Please continue to require full environmental and traffic impact assessments before any operational permits are issued. Even though buildings on federal property are exempt from state and local codes, they do have their own federal codes and standards largely set out by the General Services Administration, or GSA, and I encourage you to delve deeply into those codes and standards. Are they being followed? Who can verify that? Please examine these at a microscopic level and seek answers from them. Each step takes time. Infrastructure connections. The local codes may still apply to infrastructure components that connect a federal building to municipal systems like water and electricity. The city, I think, Portland is having success with charges of land use violations. So that is a template we can follow. Our city should require a comprehensive conditional use permit review. The city has the authority to impose operational restrictions or deny the permit if the facility doesn't meet community standards. Be extremely specific. Once it's in writing, it takes a long time to revoke if needed. Also, we already know these facilities are overcrowded. We must demand that they obey strict occupancy limits based on their own GSA codes. The Supreme Court has recognized that municipalities retain police powers over federal facilities when it comes to health and safety regulations. San Antonio needs to exercise
Pause the time. Please quiet on the dais, please. Go ahead, thank you.
Needs to exercise those powers to the fullest. Now, if federal authorities claim that this facility will house dangerous criminals, the worst of the worst, then we must ask, is this building going to be designed and equipped for high security detention to prevent escapes? Most commercial warehouses lack security infrastructure to prevent escapes, and I'm asking you to find out what steps they're taking to convert the building, what happens when a detainee victim gets out into our neighborhoods. This kind of inquiry takes time, especially when you require all responses in writing. Detention centers strain local emergency services, police, fire, medical resources without compensating the city. There's increased traffic, bad property values, people move away. I think San Antonio should not be complicit in a system with such a troubling record. I'd like the city to require transparent reporting, independent monitoring, and adherence to strict humanitarian standards as a condition for any local permits. Can you issue a statement to utilities and businesses reminding developers that after being used as a concentration camp, this location will never be used for business again? They must be prepared to declare it a total loss and have their name forever tied to that legacy.
You can submit the rest of your comments for the record. Thank you. Lourdes Zarete, followed by Brett Owl, and then Karen Heiber.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for the resolution. I don't want to be here. I signed up at 5 this morning. I started listening to what can be done, and I walked out because I don't have the strength for this. I'm tired. I'm terrified. We could all be picked up and taken away from our lives.
That's right.
And now that I know that it's a resolution and we're practically helpless, all I can do is speak out. So that's what I'm doing. Thank you.
Brett Owl, Karen Heiber, Jack Finger.
Good morning. I live in District 9. I feel that woman's pain. I probably will cry. I'm very emotional about this, but I'm going to get through it. I am a Karen, and I am here to use my Karen powers for good. I guess you could say I am here to speak to the metaphorical manager. You should also know that I'm an introvert, and I am on the way end side of the introvert scale. So I would much rather be home with a cup of tea. But for me to be here speaking to you this morning means something. I cannot let this time slip by without sounding an alarm. I'm 61. That means that the first half of my life is done. And I am lucky if I have 10 to 30 years left. When I was old enough to read the Diary of Anne Frank, I remember thinking to myself, what would I do if I had to go into hiding? And being glad that I didn't even have to think of that as a reality. As I grew into an adult, I can remember thinking, would I have hid or helped someone who was being persecuted by the Nazis? Or what would I have done in Nazi Germany? Would I have known something bad was happening in the places where the Jews were being sent? Would I have spoken out? It breaks my heart that I now have the opportunity to do so. There were inconvenient truths and rumors in 1933 that people ignored. Make no mistake, what is happening in what the government calls detention centers, and I will call concentration camps, are parallel. Aliyah Rahman, an autistic woman and a U.S. citizen, was dragged from her car while trying to go to a doctor's appointment for ongoing care for a traumatic brain injury. In her testimony to Congress, she said personnel in the concentration camp called her a body and referred to others in the camp as bodies. It is easy to treat others cruelly when you erase their humanity with inhumane labels. According to an article in Texas Tribune, a pregnant, unaccompanied minors are being sent to camps in San Benito, Texas, that lacks appropriate medical care. The Trump administration's own health and child welfare officers say that the facility and the region lack the specialized care the girls need. These girls and babies are expendable. An Irishman with a valid work permit has been held in ICE concentration camp for 5 months. He is married to a U.S. citizen. That's here in Texas where he's being held. He's married to a U.S. citizen and owns a plastering business in the Boston area. He was arrested on September 9th in 2025 and has been in an ICE concentration camp in Texas for nearly 5 months, despite having no criminal record, not even a parking ticket. It is just a horrible, horrible, horrible place, he said of his detention camp. I'm not in fear of the other inmates. I'm afraid of the staff. They're
Ma'am,
capable of anything.
Submit the rest of your comments for the record. Thank you. Jack Finger, followed by Kristen Paredes Tuttle. Actually, was Brett All here? Brett All? Okay. So then Jack Finger, Kristen Paredes Tuttle, and then Cheryl Gonzalez.
Well, Madam Mayor, other members of our illustrious San Antonio City Council, for the record, my name is Jack M. Finger. You know, I've noticed that many of y'all have been complaining about having to deal with ICE, and I think it's time we really lightened up about this whole thing. I suggest we hold a big party over here in this chamber, and I will bring ICE. Yeah, you complain about Donald Trump and Greg Abbott and ICE and comparing them to the German Nazis. Well, I think you've got something here. Yeah, I think you tell that evil Donald Trump and Greg Abbott and ICE. Yes, you tell them that you cannot take our murderers and rapists and child molesters. We need their votes too much. Yes. Also, I think, and if they, just by chance, if they take away our millions of dollars in grants because of that, you tell them we never needed your millions of dollars in the first place. Did we? Yes. Yeah, let's see what else we have here. You know, I'm always impressed with the, those old Hollywood movies that portrayed the German Nazis as those, with their thick German accents and saying, "Show me your papers." Yes, but I've also noticed that well, let's see. I noticed what you're doing here today. Yeah, to show that Mr. Audiovisual man, put that up on the, was it the yellow part there? What does it say there? Can you display that? There we go. Yeah. Blow it up a little bit if you would. Yes, vendor accountability and disclosure. Evaluate mechanisms to require disclosure of vendor participation and detention on immigration and enforcement operations when contracting with the city, particularly for services related to healthcare, food service, concentration, security, and facility maintenance. Return the camera if you would. Yeah, do you realize what you're saying here? Show me your disclosures. Yeah, and here, Mr. Audiovisual Man, put that up there if you would. What does that one say? The next part of your backup documents here. Yeah, non-contracting policies. Assess the city's decline in entering, etc.
Okay, Kristen Paredes Tuttle. Kristen Paredes Tuttle, followed by our final speaker, Cheryl Gonzalez.
Okay, that was a hard act to follow, I guess. So I'm glad that CD10 is here, maybe paying attention. I don't know who you're whispering to in that room, but it was really disgusting to see you mocking an individual with disabilities. I could see that. I could see what you were saying. I took a video. Anyways, yeah, we all saw you. Anyways, I don't really know why he gets to call in, but whatever, that's his own deal. What I'm here for is I am a speech language pathologist by trade, licensed. I work with kids with disabilities. I am the keeper of my brother, who is an older autistic individual, and they have been detaining children from schools. And when I called them, the day before Liam Ramos was taken, I asked them, what are you gonna do when they're taking kids from my speech session and telling me, you're never gonna see this kid again, and there is no way that you can keep them and ICE accountable for not sexually abusing, raping children, which they do, by the way. Not only them, but of course other inmates, but y'all are saying that this is like for safety or whatever. There is no way that we can keep track of where these kids are going. Also, ICE on the phone told me they are not taking kids from schools. They said, I don't believe you. So what that tells me is ICE detention facilities don't even know what they're doing. They don't even know that this is happening. Like, they don't even know like what the rules are, other than telling me I can't keep up with the kids. You know, I haven't personally had this happen yet, but I work in home health. I work on the side of town where this building is being erected for imprisonment of families. And I mean, what's gonna happen when they come in to a house that I'm working with a kid with disabilities with and take them? Are they going to make sure that they get their care? Are they gonna make sure that their trach is cleaned out? Are they gonna make sure that they don't aspirate and die? Probably not. I really don't see any way for us as a public to double check on kids not being raped and sexually assaulted and taken advantage of, and women and everybody in that ICE detention center, okay? I'm really obviously nervous, but we do have studies from Harvard, and I mean, there's so many papers here that have evidence that ICE detention centers are causing irreparable brain damage to children. That is a fact. Having that in the city next to kids going to school? No, no, get creative. I demand you get creative. That's it.
Cheryl Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor Ortiz. Can you hear me? First of all, thank you, Mayor Ortiz, for what you're doing and standing up. I've heard good, positive things. And those that are in City Council that are standing up and fighting back, thank you. Thank you, Jalen, for walking out just recently, right now, while that other person was speaking. I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm trying to control my feelings. I know a lot of us are feeling this way because we're coming up with ideas of how to handle this, right? How to handle already them coming to our city. Because I already went out there to that building. And when I was out there, I already seen 2 people in there. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they were expecting it, what they were doing, but they're out there. This is not a personal attack on the white people, right? But those are those that are in agreement with them, like Mr. White, that's smiling over there. Every time he is interviewed and asked about ICE, he tends to smile. Even like the lady that was sitting next to me and didn't kind of rudely ask me to silence my phone, another white lady. And when I said, well, are you asking me or are you telling me? She said, well, I didn't want to grab your phone out of your hand. The audacity, right, to think that you can grab the phone out of my hand, my personal stuff, my personal space. What is wrong with you? When people like this think that they have the audacity and the power over us, and this is a person that's supposed to be a lawyer for the city, and we're supposed to trust them? I don't think so. You said that we're supposed to put the trust in SAPD when we know there's numerous cover-ups of what they've done in the past and what they continue to do. When I went to Dilley, and no one talked about this, when we were gassed, afterwards we were followed by Dilley police, Frio County police, and state troopers. Some of us were followed all the way back to San Antonio. It's an hour drive from Dilley. And we're supposed to trust and believe that we're gonna be okay? I don't think so. We're afraid and we're angry. And you know what people do when they're afraid? They get up and they start fighting. And those that are not gonna fight by our side, we will continue to get louder and louder and louder. And you've seen it in other states, you've seen it in other cities, what they're going through. People are dying. That's what you want for San Antonio? Those who are smiling, Mr. White, is that what you want for San Antonio? You want your people to die? Well, let me give you some words of wisdom. Like in the movie, Hunger Games. If we burn, you're gonna burn with us.
That was the final speaker. May I have a motion to approve item 4 so we may begin council discussion?
So moved.
Second. We'll now move on to council discussion.
Mayor, there was one clarification that
Please.
Liz wanted to add.
Please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just with regard to putting a little more explanation behind the rationale and the legal risk that's described in item 10, and this is regard to the Know Your Rights and in response to the reference to the APD model that exists. Just to refresh, we were the subject of enforcement action by the Texas Attorney General under 2017 SB4 that took to task not only practices but also general manual language that we had in our SAPD manual. And as a result of our settlement with on that suit after years of litigation, and the second suit that sought the removal of our police chief, that uniquely situates us from Austin PD in terms of our general manual. So I just wanted to kind of clarify a little bit more with regard to that particular point, and happy to discuss one-on-one for any sort of further specificity. So thank you.
Well, Liz, I think actually maybe additional clarification based on your clarification. Does the previous legal action against the city, does that open us up to additional legal scrutiny in and of itself? Is that it? If I heard you correctly, that's what it sounds like. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As a result of our settlement, yes. And we could talk further one-on-one with specificity, Mayor, just to sort of fine-tune all of what is required under the settlement. Okay?
Well, because I think it's going to actually color some of the clarification that may be needed here.
This is only with regard to SAPD's general manual.
Okay. That's a really important part of this entire thing. So I'm going to take us into executive session to talk about that one item, because I know there's a lot of interest in that one in particular on the dais and in the public. So I'm going to take us into executive session.
Thank you, Mayor.
I ask my colleagues to remain seated while I read this. The time is now 11:11 on Thursday, February 12th, 2026. The City Council of the City of San Antonio will now meet in executive session to consult with the City Attorney's Office pursuant to Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code and to deliberate or discuss the following items: economic development negotiations pursuant to Section 551.087, the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property pursuant to Section 551.072, and legal issues related to litigation involving the city, emergency preparedness, and collective bargaining, all pursuant to Section 551.071.